Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
Hey, it's William, and welcome to today's episode of the Catalytic Leadership Podcast. Each week, we tackle a topic related to the field of leadership. My goal is to ensure that you have actionable steps you can take from each episode to grow in your own leadership. I believe, like Craig Rochelle has said many times, that when a leader gets better, everybody benefits. Your team, your department, your customers, your clients, your spouse, your kids, everybody. Each week, we spotlight leaders from a variety of fields, locations, and organizations. My goal is for you to see that leaders can be catalytic no matter where they are or what they lead. I draw inspiration from the stories and journeys of these leaders, and I hear from many of you that you do too. Let's jump in to today's interview. I'm so excited to have Sharon Hughes on the podcast today. Sharon is the two-time award-winning author of The Girl in the Garage, 3 Steps to Letting Go of Your Past, a faith-based book for breaking free from a lack of confidence, self-worth issues, and a painful past. She's the founder of Confidence Academy, the host of Called to Confidence podcast, and a confidence and self-worth expert. She is an excellent communicator that speaks in a best friend over coffee style that is easy to connect with. When she's not encouraging other people or plotting her next book, you can find her gazing at a California sunset, petting every dog that crosses her path, and eating obscene amounts of popcorn. I can resonate with that. Sharon, it is so good to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind. And just thank you for inviting me on.
I would love for you to share some of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey and your development as a leader. Sharon, how did you get started?
You know, I really fell into personal development just in an unusual way. I had an international wholesale home decor business. So tablecloths and pillows and all those pretty girly, homey things. And I had started putting on entrepreneurial events for women. I just really wanted to give back and encourage others to pursue their passion. Well, what happened was I ended up going through a painful divorce and decided that I would close my wholesale line. And at the same time, I had been given a book called You're Already Amazing by Holly Girth.
Hmm.
She's just a lovely, lovely woman. She's a marriage and family therapist. She's an encourager. She's a hope dealer. I reached out to her on Facebook and I just let her know how much I was enjoying her book. And the conversation started. And somehow in that, she said, "Why don't you become a therapist?" And I said, "Honey, as old as I am, by the time I do all my clinical hours, I'll be like 90. And she said, "Okay, well, why don't you get certified as a life coach?" She goes, "I did that too, and I can send you where I went." So that was the first step. And in that training that I was taking, I started to unearth the broken, messy pieces in my life that had been shoved down. And I learned a few things, and God took me on a journey I didn't really expect. And a couple years later, I landed in corporate training. And it was the most exciting thing I think I've ever done. I realized really quickly that being an extrovert served me well in that setting. And I got to just love people in the workplace. I mean, we're already there at work. It's kind of hard sometimes to love people in the workplace, but it was a tremendous gift. I was given free creative reign to do whatever I wanted as long as it was serving the company. And there was some tremendous breakthroughs that I learned that I would be glad to share with you.
I love that. You know, it's so interesting to me and all the conversations with leaders that I get to have, how the steps and the twists and the turns of the journey are so often unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you may think things are going to go up and to the right and it's just going to be a straight shot from here to where you want to be, but it's so seldom that is true.
Yeah.
I
So,
love to
so
hear
true.
how you have navigated those waters, and I do want to hear about some of the challenges. I'm curious that as we start, based on the different contexts that you've been in, I mean, an entrepreneur, working in corporate America in training and development, how would you, with your experiences, define leadership?
I think that each of us is put here for a purpose.
Mm,
And one thing is that we're all leaders.
yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't recognize that they're a leader. They think they need to be on a platform or in the C-suite to be a leader.
Mhm,
And they overlook that they're leaders in their homes, in their communities, to the softball team, the women's Bible study. It's just your kids.
mm,
And everybody has this opportunity. And the interesting thing is that, people are really hardwired for community. We're
mm.
looking for where we fit. We're
Yeah.
looking to be seen and heard. And when you can do that for someone, you can let them be who they are and see them and hear them. You really are a leader. So that's
Mm,
that's kind of, I
that's
guess that's
good.
probably my foundational way that I look at leadership. And then of course there's, so many other little paths and crossways that you can get in there and go even deeper. Yeah.
I love that. I love that it's others centric.
Yeah.
You're focused
Yeah.
on pouring into investing in and hearing and seeing other people.
Mhm.
So often I'm afraid that leadership has been seen as, the person in the corner office who just sends their directives and their missives and the
Mhm.
emails and do this, do that,
Yeah.
and you become a cog in the machine as a
Mhm.
member of that team. But
Mhm.
I'm not sure I've ever met anybody who wants to be a cog in a machine.
I don't think I have.
We want to be seen, like you said, we want to be
Yeah.
heard. And I think a
Yeah.
great leader is one who sees and hears people
Mhm.
as 3D human beings,
Mhm.
not as just a tool to accomplish a task.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then pouring into others and
Yeah.
there's a really great book by Cy Wakeman called Reality-Based Leadership,
Mm,
and she speaks so much about calling people higher. And she very much addresses the issues that are going on in corporate America and discusses, work with the willing, because let's face it, not everybody's willing.
yeah.
But
Yeah, that's
I don't
true.
know. I think some of those that are not willing, I tend to think that they need an extra dose of help and
Yeah.
of appropriate love in the workplace. Sometimes it's kind of like when you're in third grade and the kid that's always getting into trouble needs to be
Yeah.
like the door monitor or something. Because all of a sudden they're like, oh, I have a job. I'm
Yeah.
validated.
Yes.
I think that might be a piece of it.
It's part of seeing and hearing them,
Yeah.
understanding that, this one needs a little more focus, a little more
Yeah.
attention at the moment.
Yeah.
That's okay. And I think
Yeah.
that a great leader sees that. You
Yeah.
you called your book The Girl in the Garage. It's a fascinating title. Why did you choose that?
Well, it sounds like it should be a murder mystery or something like that.
It does.
Yeah, well, this is kind of it's a wild story. I had a really rough upbringing, a lot of abuse, and
Mm,
was a tremendously lost young woman. And a fateful night when I was 16 and went to a Halloween party, I was handed a red cup. And we kind of know what happens when you're
mhm,
given a red cup.
mm,
But yeah, I went into the bathroom and I passed out and I woke up in a garage hours later. And that sealed, I feel like on an emotional and even a spiritual level, it was
mm,
almost like taking, the poison apple from the Wicked Witch and Snow White. It sealed the deal. I just thought that I was a throwaway, that I didn't have value,
mm,
and that narrative of you're just the girl in the garage came through. Yeah.
mm. Wow.
Yeah, it was something. So the book is my testimony, but it's also a workbook for women that have had self-worth issues and or abuse and trauma.
So, what is the difference between confidence and self-worth? You're using both of those terms. I would love to hear what the difference is between those.
Yeah, well, in my view, confidence is a skill set. It's kind of
Mhm.
like learning to ride a bike. When you first
Mm,
start, you're kind of like, gosh, I'm not so sure about this. But after you give it a whirl a few times, you feel better about hopping on the seat and going. You learn it. Just like anything, like giving a presentation, anything that we do brand new, it feels awkward and messy and clunky. And then as we work at it, we get better and we start to go, oh, okay, I'm more confident in this skill. Self-worth is completely different. Self-worth looks like, do I deserve this? I don't think I'm good enough. I messed up, and it comes with a lot of shame and issues and insecurities, because even a person that's struggling with self-worth, they can be closing $1 million deals. They're totally confident in that ability to, negotiate, close the deal, but they might be going home to an empty house because they just have so many heartaches and wounds that they haven't dealt with, that maybe they're single or maybe the family has walked out on them. So it kind of opens up a whole messy bag. And I was not the girl that had a confidence issue. I was pretty bold and jumped into things, but I had a tremendous self-worth issue because anything that I achieved was never enough. I was
mm.
really seeking for a lot of validation. And what I ended up learning the hard way was I didn't accept myself. And if you don't accept yourself, how is anybody else going to?
So true. It's interesting. I've never thought about that you can have one and not the other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really common. So when I launched my wholesale decor line, I had been a buyer for a store. I knew a little bit about they call it going to market and placing the orders. And I knew my way around doing that a little bit. And one day I woke up and I just said, I'm going to start my own line. And I figured out how to source the fabrics. I found they call them sewing contractors to do all the assembly work. And I just figured it all out. And I landed in a couple of showrooms. There was not a confidence issue. I was just like, yeah, I can do this. But as things progressed and my line was getting some publicity, different magazines were featuring me, and I would be really excited and grateful for that. But at the same time, I would say to myself, you don't really deserve that. You didn't work hard enough. Like this was all
Mm,
just too easy for you. And I
mm.
started living in the, okay, what's next? What's next? It was like I needed another dopamine dose or hit,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
nothing was good enough. Nothing was satisfying because I was so broken. Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
So, in the midst of all of this and what you've had to overcome, how did this impact your relationship with God?
With God, oh, okay. So I was really afraid of God. I don't remember ever not believing in God. I grew up in a faith-based home, but I thought that God was like my earthly father, be good, straighten up,
Mm,
you know.
yeah.
And I thought, well, Jesus is the nice one because he died for me. So I'm cool with Jesus. And he took me on a journey, and one morning I really hit a low. This was probably about 6 years ago. Absolute low.
Mm,
I woke up one morning and I was praying and I just said, I'm not going to make it.
mm,
And I heard Holy Spirit say, what are you believing about yourself? And I just thought, are you kidding me? You know all the
mm,
things. And he said, is it true?
mm,
I was like, wow, well, I've never considered whether this is true.
mm.
I've been to counseling. Nobody's ever asked me if what I believe about myself is true. And that completely changed the game for me. So I took those two questions into corporate training, and that was where I was getting tremendous breakthrough. And I had people crying in the office, and I'm thinking, I'm going to get fired. You can't make people cry in the office. But those two questions will change everything.
I hope our listeners are writing these down because I think you're
Yes.
absolutely right. I think that those are very insightful questions that will make us pause and reflect and think and
Yeah.
perhaps give the breakthrough that is absolutely needed.
I think so too. And those two questions can even be applied to circumstances, relationships, you can
Mhm.
stop and say, what am I believing about this situation that's going on right now?
Yeah.
I did this not too long ago. I realized I was giving a situation way too much power and giving
Mm.
people power. And I was like, why am I even believing this? This is not even true.
That's
And it
good.
was really instantly resolved, like right there for me within my mind and my emotions. I was like, wow, this, there's something to this.
That's so good. You talk about 3 steps
Mhm.
in your book. What are the
Yeah.
what are the 3 steps you talk about?
Well, the first step is recognizing that you have the power of choice. This is your superhuman power.
Mm.
So in faith-based world, we call it free will.
Mhm.
So if you're going to pick what you're going to have for lunch, whether it's peanut butter or it's tuna sandwich, you also, with your entire life, get free will and power of choice to pick anything. So with that choosing, you get to choose what you're going to believe. So
Mm.
that second step is, well, what if you're not what you've been believing about yourself? So, for example, when I would lead this training, I would start it off by saying, what's the thing that you've been dragging around with you?
Mm.
I said, don't say it. Just, focus on it. Whether it's the guy that couldn't make the cut of the team and he was told, you're no good, you're a loser. It
Mm.
could be the teacher that said, you're not working hard enough. You're stupid. You should have scored higher. Whatever it is, it's the wife that walked out on you
Mm.
and you think nobody will ever love me. I'm unredeemable.
Mm.
And I would say, hold on to that. So we get through the whole training. At the end, I would say, okay, what if that thing, what if you let go of it? Who would you be? And the
Mm.
first time I did this, a woman in the front row of the training room shouted out free. And I was kind of blown away because she was kind of a rough chick. She had a lot of tattoos. She had a little bit of a mouth, just she was an interesting gal. And after that training, she came to me and she said, I have to tell you how that spoke to me. I need to go home tonight and have a talk with my 9-year-old daughter because I have not been treating her well. So I was
Mm.
like, wow, like these questions that God gave me, I like to call them the God questions because they weren't just for me, they were for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
So after that second question there, then you go into the third question and you say, well, who could I be or who would I be? So like that gal that said free, you got to think of, hey, if I let go of these things I've been believing that I'm no good, I'm a loser, well, then who am I?
Yeah.
Because what happens so often is when we believe lies for a really long time, they really take deep roots in us.
Mm.
And we don't know who we are when we let go of that. We have to really relearn, who are we? What am I about? What's possible for me?
That is so true. I've watched people's identity be formed by the limiting beliefs, the
Mm-hmm.
misbeliefs that they
Mm-hmm.
hold. And they've held them, like you say, for so long, it's
Mm-hmm.
become who they are.
Yeah.
And when you take that away and you say, hey, no, wait, is that true?
Yeah.
Love the question. Is that
Yeah.
true? And you pull that back, it leaves such a void.
Mm. It does. And some people will fight to hold on to it.
It
They really take
yeah.
ownership of it. It's a part of who they are at their core.
Hmm.
It's kind of like when I think the first time I read, Jesus coming to somebody that clearly needed a healing and
Mhm.
asking them, what is it that you want? I was like,
Yeah.
why would you ask that? Of course they want healing.
Yeah.
No, not everybody does.
No.
Some
No.
people identify so strongly with that issue.
Mhm.
They can't fathom life without the issue.
They're trapped in the victim mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you
Mm-hmm.
let that go, oh my goodness, wait a minute. Now I have to make a choice.
Yeah.
Your first
Yeah.
step, right? I've got
Mm-hmm.
to make a choice now to
Mm-hmm.
do something different.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
Yeah. And it
intimidating.
can
That's
be,
scary.
yeah. Oh, and it can be painful too. The second
Mm.
time I led that training, 2 people were crying. One girl had to leave the room, and I was really concerned about her
Mm.
because, she was not able to compose herself. And the second person that started to cry was a guy in his mid 30s.
Hmm.
charming. And he came up to me and he said, Sharon, I haven't spoken to my family in 10 years and I'm going to call them tonight. I was
Whoa.
like, wow.
Whoa.
So I did find out that the other gal, she was really young and she had a very abusive mother. She was
Hmm.
probably 21 or 22 and, one of her first jobs. And here she's being hit with this and she just that was too much for her to bear. But the company was gracious and made sure that there was people around her to just,
Hmm.
help her. And you need to take the afternoon, that's okay. But she ended up leaving the company and going on and starting another really great job and getting her own place. And we like those stories because she decided to choose herself and walk
Yeah.
away from an abuser, which takes so much determination and strength and faith. Boy,
Hmm.
yeah.
You think it's possible to experience healing without forgiving an abuser?
Oh, this is a tough question. This is one that I've personally had to do a lot of work with. I think you can get a tremendous amount of healing without forgiving because of just the fact that like you're in this space of working on yourself.
Hmm.
But there's
Yeah.
something about when you forgive someone,
Hmm.
now not denying what this person did, not
Right.
needing to go have a picnic with them, they're still accountable for what they've done,
Yeah.
but you let it go because holding on to it, like all the people that abuse me, holding on to that, it does not improve my life. It doesn't improve my mental health, any aspect of my well being. But when you let go, you go, whoa. And there are days that I have picked it back up again and carried around that unforgiveness. But I
Hmm.
found that if the faster I can forgive an offense, it's like a miracle pill.
Hmm.
If something happens and you just go, hey, I'm letting you go, babe. God bless you. I pray for you. And I'll even say a quick prayer. It's it's instant release.
Hmm.
None of that bitterness, the angst, the worry, none of it has a chance to take root in your life.
I was talking to somebody just last week about boundaries
Mm,
and the importance of creating boundaries. And I
yeah.
told him, I said, I really think this is something that is not taught at all, really.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think this should be taught alongside geometry.
I
Like,
think so.
so that our teenagers will understand the
Yeah.
importance of creating boundaries in their lives and relationships. And we're not taught that. And so
Yeah.
when somebody breaks across a boundary that either is not stated or inappropriately in the case of
Mm,
abuse, what do you do with that? How do you
yeah.
deal with that? We're not
Yeah.
equipped so often to
Hmm.
deal with that.
Yeah.
And I love how you describe forgiveness there as, there can be healing, but that's magical almost.
It
When there
is.
is forgiveness, what that does to accelerate and deepen the healing work. That's powerful. That is
Yeah,
powerful.
it's surprising to me. The more I've implemented it, the more I believe it is almost like a magic pill.
Hmm.
Just a few weeks ago, there was something somebody did, and I felt that kind of like that, you get inside you when
Yeah.
somebody wrongs you. And I go, I do not want to feel like this for one more moment. I
Hmm.
am letting this go. They made a mistake. They're human. It
Yeah.
wasn't something that somebody was doing
Hmm.
in an abusive or vicious way.
Sure.
They had a moment, and I think that we're living in like this place in the world where everybody is so offended about
Yeah.
every little thing all the time.
Sure.
Just like, I don't want to be that person.
It's
I don't,
unsustainable.
yeah,
Like,
it's
how can
that's
you sustain
true.
that level of just
Yeah,
waiting? Yeah, hit me,
yeah,
offend me. Like, who can live there?
yeah,
Who
yeah.
wants to live there?
It's rough.
Talking
It's
back
rough.
around confidence,
Mhm.
how can a lack of confidence affect your leadership?
Mm. Yeah, I think that when people have a lot lack of confidence, they can get really in their head. They can start
Yeah.
overthinking.
Mm,
Um,
so true.
some of the gals I've had in some trainings recently were as it is in the corporate world, they always promote people because they're good at what they do, not
Right.
because they necessarily are prepared to lead a team. So a
Yes.
lot of people will start this, oh my gosh, if they only knew that I really don't know what I'm doing and I'm winging it and this kind of thing, they can get
Yes.
very in their head and even be paralyzed.
Yeah.
So they can set themselves up to fail. They don't recognize what they're doing right away. I think the bigger issue is really, how does self-worth affect your leadership? I
Mm.
truly believe that if you don't do the personal work, that personal development piece, that it bleeds out into your professional life. Whereas a lot of times, if you're very professionally developed, it doesn't always bleed back into your personal life the same way
Mm.
as vice versa. Yeah.
Mm. That is insightful, and I agree. Thinking back over people that I've worked with, I think you're exactly right. It feels like it bleeds more one way than another. We are integrated people. Everything affects
Yeah.
everything else, but the level of bleed does differ there. That's fascinating. I don't.
Yeah.
I can't remember having that insight before. Thank you for that. That's helpful.
I'll send you a bill.
Send it on. I would love. You have already come across several books that I've written down as we're talking that have made an impact on you. Is there a book that you would consider to be a favorite one that the leaders who are listening, you would say, if you want to read one book this month, this is one I would recommend for you.
Well, aside from yours,
Oh, now.
we got to plug that. I think that, well, when I landed in corporate training, I was so desperate to find answers that when I came across reality-based leadership,
Yeah.
I sat in my cubicle and I cried. I literally cried
Wow.
because what was going on around me was in the book. And I was like, okay, somebody else gets it. They've got some
Mm.
solutions here.
Mm.
That particular job, it was the best job in the absolutely most toxic environment. I've never
Oh,
seen anything like it. So yeah, I would say that book, Reality Based Leadership.
that's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What do you
it's rich.
what do you wish you had known about working in your field, doing what you do now? What do you wish you had known before you started?
Hmm, that's a good question. I don't know if there's something I wish I would have known before I started. I think in the journey of development, I'm not the same person I was even a year ago, and I really believe that as human beings, unless you're just laying on the couch every night watching TV,
Yeah.
you're gonna have growth of some kind, right? But we need to be growing. We need to be developing. There's so much, and
Mm.
and the world is so big, and there's so many people that need help. There's It's almost like climbing Mount Everest, you just got to do it a step at a time and just keep going. You don't ever
Mm.
stop. And 5 years from now, I'm going to know so much more than I know now. And I'm going to be like, wow, how did I not ever know that? Yeah, I just love the learning journey.
Sharon, you have shared so much with insight and wisdom today. I'm going to ask you one more question, and I ask this
Okay.
of all of my guests. If you could share one piece of advice with people who are listening, if they just walk away with one thing,
Mhm.
what is that one thing?
Mm, I love this question. My favorite saying that I somehow came up with when I wrote my book is, believing a lie is just as powerful as believing the truth. So, that one thing, if you can
Mm.
tape that to your bathroom mirror and look at it every morning and night when you're brushing your teeth, and just, start thinking about, what is the lie that I believe and I'm holding on to as tightly as I hold on to the truth. This will help you unearth some of the things that you need to let go of, that you need to heal from, maybe forgive. It's pretty powerful. Lies take root the same way as truths do. But
Wow.
lies are kind of like that weed in your garden that just chokes out what you've planted. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's so good. I know our listeners are going to want to stay connected with you, Sharon. What is the best way for them to do that?
You can reach out to me at hello@sharonhughes.net. So that's my email, or you can just go to sharonhughes.net and check out my page and see what I'm up to. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we are going to have links to the books that you've recommended, as well as that link in the show notes, so folks can continue to learn from you and stay connected with you. I'm also going to put a link to your book, which I'm excited to read. Hearing more about it today just makes me think I really need to dig into this. It sounds so helpful. So thank you for the insight and the wisdom that you've shared today so freely and so generously with us.
Oh, thank you. You are such a joy to work with. I just loved having this time with you.
Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I have a couple of requests for you. I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to find this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach who can help you to intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. And stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.